People have asked me to go into the Damian Lillard trade. Obviously, we got some football going on this week, but I already got my college picks out. I got my pick out for tonight, so we have some time. And then I'll be covering Sunday's games between tonight and tomorrow. For Damian Lillard, it's interesting. I've long had the theory that wherever he went was going to be a complete red herring, whether it be the Heat, whether it be they were talking about Lakers at some point. They were talking about a couple different teams, Knicks. And I genuinely thought it didn't make sense. Anyone's going to pile money on wherever he goes, especially now that he's on Milwaukee. So, while typically I'd immediately rule out Milwaukee, I am thinking of them. Now, they're not my favorites by any means, but I wouldn't put them in the same category as the Suns, who are obviously not going to, in my opinion, go anywhere. I think when you have a team that just stacks up like that, especially in this era when they're trying to get back to team ball, you're not going to see that. Now, this signing does actually make a little bit of sense. It's not them just signing superstars. They went out and got another guy to go with Giannis. Now, again, I don't think it's going to happen. I genuinely don't. One thing I found interesting is I always bring up Pi and how Pi always seems to be connected to the finals teams. And sorry about that. I get these all the time. Anyway, the Warriors a couple years ago when they won the whole thing, a lot of Pi numbers. I did a whole video on it. It was on my old channel. Obviously, Curry's 30, and obviously, it was his fourth ring. And they had Kerr got his fourth ring as a coach. I think he's got like 8 or 9 in total. And they had won their 400th game against the Celtics earlier that year. There was a lot of 3-1-4s. They shot 41.3% in the series. There was a lot. So anyway, I always look at Pi. And the reason Pi is important here is we have 34 and Dame's changing his number to 1. So we have an inverse of Pi now in being these two men. Now that could be a reach, but like I said, they always find a way to make Pi. Another thing I found interesting is he went from the number 0 to the number 1. Maybe that's indicating something, right? He's going to go from 0 rings to 1 ring. So those are the two biggest reasons I like this possibility. That being said, someone also brought to my attention a while back, I don't remember who it was, but they had gone over the list of people who had tried and did not win. They had said a black athlete with the number 1 has never won a world championship. So you could let me know if that's true or not. They went into soccer, how their star player, no number 1 did it. They went into football, basketball, and I can't think of one off the top of my head who has. Maybe some very, a minor role player, but I know Hurts got there, but I don't know of anyone that's won. So I could see them maybe getting there. I don't think they're going to win it. Basically that's my stance. I think they're going to have a lot of money piled. They're already going to have money on them. They're probably already going to share, along with the Celtics, I would say the biggest handle coming out of the East. And now you do this. And what makes it even more laughable is when you think about the trade. So the Suns did all of this so they didn't care about depth. And honestly, look what the Lakers have been doing. You can sign good role players and get your depth. But they trade away all their depth, and then they do this all so they can keep Ayton. And then they finally trade Ayton, who they're saying has a bad relationship with the team. But they get a guy who is actually a good player if he's healthy. But they get a guy who's less reliable. And it's a bad fit. It makes no sense in my opinion. It's even less defense, for the Suns. I mean, where it feels like the Suns only did this trade so they could justify Damian Lillard being traded to the Bucks the same way they justified the Dallas Mavericks getting Kyrie, and the same way they justified the Suns. The Suns were involved in all these trades. It's getting Durant. So it's just one of those deals where I think they want to get people on the Bucks. Now I'm not going to again auto fade them. I'll be watching them. But my early season predictions, honestly, I had the Lakers, as you guys know. I went into this so many times. I thought they were going to win next year, not this coming year, but the next year. Give LeBron a 3-year penance, and then he wins one with his son. That's what I thought was going to happen. The reason I'm liking the Lakers more than ever is they're doing everything a championship team does, and this is how they like to portray championship teams. So they've signed Christian Wood. They've signed they've retained Rui. I think they might trade him, but they retained guys that are important. They retained Reeves, and they signed other guys. They signed Prince from the Timberwolves. They got a handful of good players that just took ridiculously low contracts to be on the team. So I'm looking at the Lakers. I am. I'm looking at something like I could see Lakers Boston this year. I really could. And Boston's the other one because they have the quiet trade. They got Porzingis, and I think people are looking at that and looking at Dame and laughing. Like, okay, well, now Boston doesn't have a chance. All these different things. I think the Heat, they might tease something, but they're not going back. They had their 1 year. There'd be no reason for them to go back. If they did, I'd be pretty surprised. But sure, this could be to get people off the Heat, but I just don't think they're going to do it. But yeah, I could see Celtics, Lakers. I'm still looking at the Mavericks because skinny Luka. See what happens with Kyrie. It's the 77th year, which is interesting. I know some people fight me on that because 2 years ago, the NBA came out and vehemently said it was the 75th year because of the bubble year. And then, which was made last year the 76th year. And then people were saying, no, last year was technically the 77th. The year before was the 76th. But I'm just going by the NBA schedule. So, number 77 obviously plays for the Mavs. So, early season predictions. I don't have time to do, because I'm going to go into some football, to do like, a deep breakdown of who's going to win each division, all of our playoff teams. But I will be doing that in the next week or so. But I wanted to go into Dame. I personally would not pick them to win. I don't think they're going to go to the finals. I think they're going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals and lose to the Celtics. So that's just my early season predictions. Of course they could, again. But on the Western side's where I'm more interested. You have so many teams, and I am liking the Lakers and Mavericks early on. And for the Blazers, it's just a rebuilding type deal. They got Scoot, obviously. They got Ayton now. He's probably not going to do too much. Well, his numbers will probably look good. Then they got guys, I mean, again, the Blazers could have got so much more, if you think about it. But they do these things just so they can make it make sense. They're 2K trades. If I tried that trade in 2K, it would shut me down for being unrealistic. That's just the truth. So, that is what it is. Now, I wanted to go into, if you missed the video, I have the Lions winning. Actually, I went with the cover. It was 1.5 when I went with it. I'm just saying, be on the lookout this year. They did it with four points and 3 points a lot in history. Now with so many people betting and thinking, being smart into it, I think we're going to see a lot of these nonsense. I'm hoping we're wrong and the Lions just run away with it because I have Gibbs on a couple props. I know I told you guys never to take props that I suggest, so you could take the opposite if you want. I wouldn't blame you, but I think him getting a touchdown, it's basically a 50-50 odd a prop, which I think is usually a score an anytime touchdown for a running back. You're going to be getting like 150. So the fact that my book was giving him like 105, I thought was interesting. And I don't think he scored a touchdown all year. So to me, it makes sense. Give it to him in prime time. Now, the reason I mentioned the spread is I could see a 1-point game. Green Bay just had a 1-point game. We were seeing a lot of these 1-2 point games where I think they're clipping people. This might even move to 2.5 at the spread. It opened with Green Bay as a 1-point favorite. So these are the ones that I look out for, where they just kind of swing them a point or two. It looks so harmless. Either way, I think it's minus 130. You can do whatever you want. I played the Lions to cover, but I'm just saying this year, if you see 1-2 point covers, keep an eye out for them because I don't think they're guaranteed. I think the Lions are going to win for a few reasons. They're really forcing streaks this year. They didn't really talk about how the Jets were 0-15 or whatever it is, the last X amount of games against the Patriots until this year. They weren't talking about how the Texans have beaten the who the Texans keep beating up. I think it's the Ravens, the Jags. How the Texans beat the Jags all the time. They brought that up this year. The Browns streak against the Steelers streak against the Browns. They brought that up this year. And the Packers over the Bears. Rodgers tweeted out like, "Thank you for keeping the ownership in place," something to that nature. So with that logic, keeping the ownership in place, they will keep up their losing streak, or their winning streak, I should say, to the Packers. The Packers have a winning streak against the Bears. They'll probably have a losing streak against the Lions. And I also went into how, just because the team's at home, I think people are just conditioned to say, okay, I'll take Green Bay in this one and Detroit when they're at home. and I don't think that's always going to be the case. I think people are sleeping on Detroit, and Vegas wants them to be a really good team this year. So I went into that already, why I like the Lions in that game. I will be going into the 1 o'clock games, obviously. I'm going to basically hit them all at once. What I will say is it's pretty interesting because for the 4 o'clock games, the Cardinals can do something special. And if you look at the Patriots-Cowboys, not that big of an upset. Less than a touchdown now. And my fade Dion theory. So with them being the second biggest favorite, it's a pretty interesting line. I think it could definitely be covered. And I think they could win it. So we'll have to see. I'll be going into that. Obviously, I'm basically going to be taking the Patriots. Some are contingent. I did it last week. I waited for the 1 o'clock games before I locked my 4s for a reason. Because if the Ravens win, that kind of throws our theory right out the window. So we'll know a little bit early because we got the Falcons playing before the other games, and then we got the 1 o'clock games. But yeah, I think the fade Dion theory is going to work. And for the Lions-Packers, like I said, I had already gone into this game. I really more wanted to cover Dame, and just what I immediately think is going to happen. I think it actually I think it strengthens the Celtics more than any other team because money won't be on them as hard now. But yeah, riding the streak, the fact that we are, again, early in the season, the Lions could certainly lose this game. But I think they're going to have the Lions, again, win the games, especially because they haven't had a real dominant performance yet. They lost to the Seahawks. I think they're going to win these close games. And I looked, according to Vegas Insider, it's 50-50. For once, I agree. I think that's where it should be. I think there are a lot of people that see St. Brown, that see Gibbs. Okay, Goff's pretty good. They're feisty. Campbell's a good coach. But then you have people that also see, okay, Love's good. They got some really good young receivers in Watson and who's the other guy? Dobbs, I think his name is. Not Dobbs. It's spelled Doubes, I think. But either way, they have a couple guys of themselves. I think Dillon's going. I think Jones is hurt. But it's not, and Green Bay's at home. So I think it's a game where it will be 50-50. And the Vegas can easily just make their money on the over-under, on props, things of that nature. So, like I said, I do think the Lions win this game. I like them. I have them to cover. It's a leg 3. And keep your eye out because they are doing these going for twos, these weird going for touchdowns instead of kicking the easy field goal, and it's making it where we're getting weird scores where teams are covering where normally they'd never cover a 1 or 2 point spread, and it's or they're pushing a 1 point spread, covering 2 point spreads, things of that nature. So tonight, again, I'm not entirely convinced that's going to happen. I think we're going to get a Lions win, move to 3-1. I think they'll cover it. And I do like Gibbs for a touchdown. So combining Gibbs and a Lions win, I think, is a good prop. I think it pays about plus 250, 275 to 1, something like that. And I've been dead off on props this year, but this one I think is pretty safe. And it's between the odds and the fact that it's a primetime game. The guy's yet to score a touchdown. It's the reason I don't have St. Brown going nuts. He's coming off of back-to-back 200-yard games twice in a row. It's the reason I don't have Hutchinson getting a sack because he had 2 last week. Doesn't mean they can't do it again. It's just I try and go with the guys that I feel like, well, if they're going to get their numbers, they're going to have to do it eventually. So just Gibbs for the touchdown, and I do like the main play is for the Lions to cover. And like I said, later tonight, I already went into college. If you missed my college video, we have one game tonight. It's an over on the Sam Houston game. And I have, like I said, I'll have all of our Sunday games coming out in the next day or two. If I find any more football stragglers for college, I'll put them out as well. So take care, everybody.